Welcome back to the 8th concession. My name is Natalie. Well, I think spring is here to stay. We did have a few flurries the last few days and below freezing temperatures, but it's supposed to warm up now, and I think it's going to stay fairly warm. So it's time to get a bit of a start on my outdoor gardening chores. Now, I know a lot of you are facing the same thing I am here, and that is the rising cost of everything, really, and gardening supplies are no different. So it's pretty hard to try and still, garden and save money at the same time. So I wanted to share with you today my top 5 hacks from the dollar store for some things in the garden. So the first one I want to talk to today are these. These are coconut coir, and these I found at the dollar store. They're to go inside hanging wire pots. So they're like a liner. They're about a foot in diameter, and I got these 2 for $2.50 at our local Dollarama here in Ontario. Now, I don't want to use these to line wire baskets, although I do have one. What I want to use them for today is as a mulch around some of my plants, namely my roses over here by the pond. I like to use these because I can set them and forget them, and then when the mosquitoes get really bad, I don't have to come over and weed all the time. Now, you can mulch, of course, around any plants, but these in some ways are even better than mulch, and that's because when they're down, they do still allow air to go through. Mulch can sometimes, if it's on really thick, it can almost, smother the ground. It can be a bit of a breeding ground for a mold or mildew. These allow the roots still to breathe and, of course, the water to go through. The other good thing about them is most little critters and or pests don't like them. They don't like the feel of them. So you can use these even in planter pots. And if you have problems with, say, chipmunks or squirrels digging into your planters, these will help prevent that because they don't like the feel of them. And apparently insects as well don't really like to go in, so they're good in that respect. Now, at the dollar store, as I said, I got 2 for $2.50, and I saw online that some that already have the hole in it so that you can put it like a collar around plants, they can go for 2 for $14 or something like that. And I mean, the cost savings of simply cutting these yourself is enormous. So I'm going to save over $10 because I'm going to use 4 of them around the plants here. That's a huge savings. All I'm going to do is take a pair of scissors and I'm going to cut into the mat towards the center. And then I'm going to just cut a hole here, roughly the size I need to go around my plants. And you can tailor this to however big the stem might be on yours. Now, my first rose there has spread a bit, so I'm actually going to make it a bit bigger than I did last year. Voila! You can see my lilac bush over here even has a little bit left of the one from last year. And that's the other thing I noticed. Some of the ones you can buy on Amazon, although they're cheaper if you buy bigger packs, there have been some bad reviews saying that they're pretty thin and they break down within a couple of weeks. You can see this one has lasted through the whole winter and is still offering some protection. So I do think that perhaps you have to be careful when you order from Amazon. You're not quite sure of the quality you're going to get. At least in the dollar store, you can feel them and touch them before you buy them. They're all ready for the new season to keep the weeds down and the pests out. My second hack is something that those who've been following me for a while might have already seen me use, and that's using paper cups as plant pots. Now here on the 8th concession, we really try to avoid plastic as much as possible. I'm not a fan of it. So, I mean, it's virtually impossible to get rid of all the plastic in our lives. Even the housing of the camera that's taking this video is plastic. But where we can make a choice to use something other than plastic, we will try and do that here. And that is, for me, starting my plants in paper cups. I also have soil blockers, which I like to use. But these are great if the plant has to stay in for a longer time, or if I'm going to end up, it's windy today, or if I'm going to end up gifting them to friends or family, they're just easier to transport in these. Now, this package here is 50. These are just bathroom cups from the dollar store. They are 50, and I think I paid $1.50 for them. So I was looking on Amazon for other biodegradable types of plant pots, and I found those sort of pressed cardboard ones, and they were 100 for I think $18. So I can get 100 of these for about $3. That's a savings of $15 right there. And I love the paper pots. You can plant them in the garden. They will break down within a year, but you don't even have to take your plants out of them if you don't want to. And that's really handy for some plants like loofahs, where they don't like their roots to be disturbed, and they can shock if you take them out of a container and then plant them in the garden. Even that much, they'll have a temper tantrum. So being able to put the pot directly in the ground is super. And if you want, and you're worried about the roots having sort of easy access to get out when the cup is still very intact, you can always punch a few more holes in it just before you plant it in the ground. So paper cups, and you can use the larger drink cups for larger plants as well, say pumpkins or zucchini or tomato plants, and they're fairly inexpensive too. So here's a little pepper I've started in one of my paper cups. And you can see that this cup is a great size, and it will serve its purpose right until this pepper plant is ready to go into the garden. So another $13 saved. You can hear that the frogs are very happily croaking. The chickens, not so much. But I wanted to come down here to share with you my third dollar store gardening hack. And that is a make your own olla. Now, for those of you who don't know, an olla is a very ancient watering technique. It was basically developed in very dry areas, probably New Mexico, Arizona. And the indigenous people figured out that by using terracotta pots, they could water plants from underground. So ollas that you can buy, you can see they have a big bulbous bottom and a long top. So you fill the olla with water, you bury it underground so that the top is just sticking out where you can water it easily. And then the roots of the plants can actually draw water right through the terracotta. So it seeps out slowly, you don't lose a lot of water to evaporation or the heat, and the plants have access to it as quickly or as slowly as they need. But true ollas, while they're lovely, and I'd love to have a whole bunch of them, they're really expensive. So an olla of about 7 inches by 9 inches is roughly $110. My make your own olla, though not as pretty, uses 2 terracotta pots that I got at the dollar store. So one shaped like this and a flatter one shaped like that. I used a bit of silicone to put them together, and the little pipe you see sticking out the top is just somewhere for me to put a funnel to easily fill it underground. My olla, the clay pots or the terracotta pots, were about $4 for this one and $3.50 for this one. So $7.50 for the pots, a little bit of money in silicone to seal them and close them and hold them together, and the end of a hollow broom handle, let's say $1. So my olla costs about $9, $10 if you want to be generous. So I am going to have 3 of them this year. I did make this one last year, and you can see by the look of it that I put it underground, but we had such a wet, rainy summer last year that I didn't actually need it, and I couldn't see how well or poorly it was doing because it rained so much. I don't think I ever watered the garden. I didn't need to. This year, it might be a drier, hotter summer, and I'm going to give it a try again to see how, I think around my peppers and tomatoes, really heavy waterers, I'm going to try the ollas again this year. This year I'll have 3, and at $10 each, that's about $30 in ollas rather than $330. A $300 savings right there. Dollar store garden hack number 4 is the easiest of all. No DIY needed. And that is these. I found these little wire waste paper baskets at the Dollar Tree for $1.50. These make the perfect wire cloches to put around your plants if you have a certain plant that some critters like to nibble on. And the perfect example is right behind me here. These are some tulips I have coming up, and they've already been nibbled on a little bit by the many rabbits we have here at our house. So for $1.50 and a few garden staples, and I got these at the dollar store, 10 of them for $1.50, so 15 cents each. I can protect my plants from nibblers. Now I was looking on Amazon for some similar wire cloches, and there's some very nice ones with chicken wire, but then I saw this listing for what looked like a pack of these exact same waste paper baskets. So they wanted $65 for 10 of them, and at the Dollar Tree, 10 of these cost me $11.50. That's a $50 savings. You can't beat that. A few pennies for some staples to keep them in place. Now I did see some other wire waste paper baskets at Dollarama here in Canada, but they had a solid top or I guess bottom. it's a garbage can. But these are what you want. You want wire all the way so that sunlight and rain can still come down through the top. You don't want it solid here. So Dollar Tree is where I found these. You can see on this bunch all the leaves have been nibbled here, and I certainly don't want the blossoms to also be nibbled. So here we go. And when the tulips get big enough that they're at the top of this, they won't be eaten by the rabbits at that point anyway. I'll just take them off. My 5th dollar store garden hack has to do with having some climbing structure for your plants. I really liked the metal obelisks that I would see all over the place, but they're so expensive. I mean, one is about $30, and if you want multiples, well, it adds up quickly. So I found a way to make my own climbing supports and to make them look a little bit pretty too, because we want to have beauty in our garden as well. So here are my garden obelisks. You can see that I've used tomato cages the other way round to the way you normally put them in their ground. And on top I found these really cute drawer knobs at the dollar store, 4 for $5. The tomato cages were $1.75, and then I have some more of the garden staples, 15 cents each, just to peg them down. This will be perfect for my peas and maybe even my Polish pea beans, and give me something pretty to look at in the garden. They were fairly simple to make. I just used pliers to bend the prongs. One I bent so that it would stick more or less straight upwards once the ends were tied together. The other two I bent down, then I took some wire, wired them all together, and then the drawer hole will be held on with some nice strong glue. There are my garden obelisks that I paid $3.50 for each, times 4 is $14, compared to $30 each, or $120. That's a savings of $106. My bonus hack isn't exactly a dollar store hack, it's more a thrift store hack. Unless you can find something like this in the dollar store, I haven't had any luck. But that is this, my mini greenhouse glass cloches. Now I went to the thrift store and I found, I think this was a fruit bowl, and I found some other ones that were punch bowls or any sort of glass that doesn't have too much cut work on it. And it mimics the glass cloches that they used to use, especially back in French gardens, to keep a little mini greenhouse to help plants on the shoulder seasons when it gets a little cool, either in the spring like I'm doing now over my lettuce, or in the fall to extend the garden season. $2 or $3 for a cloche. I'm not even sure you can buy the glass ones anymore, but if you can find them, they're about $40 or $50. So this was $2 or $3. So there's a big savings right there, and they're really great just to keep, especially the lettuce, growing when you're in a colder zone like I am here in zone 5B, just to have lettuce a little earlier and a little longer in the season. There you go, 5 great dollar store garden hacks to keep you gardening without breaking the budget. Bye for now.